Hey friends, it's October. That means it's Prime Cozy Crockpot Recipe season. I'm Mel and welcome to my kitchen. Tonight I'm sharing 7 of my family's all-time favorite slow cooker dinner recipes. They're all about 5 ingredients, pretty much dump and go, and every one is full of flavor. Your family will be asking for these all year long, and they're so easy to make, you'll be happy to oblige. So let's get started. Tonight we're having slow cooker Italian chicken sandwiches for supper. I can't wait to share this little recipe with you. This is basically a dump and go recipe. We are going to mix up our little sauce to begin with though. Starting with half a cup of Italian dressing. You want to use a pretty good Italian dressing here. I'm using this Kraft Supreme Italian. 1 teaspoon of sugar, a half a teaspoon of salt, a quarter of a teaspoon crushed red pepper flakes, and 2 tablespoons of tomato paste. We're just going to get it all mixed together, and it will be very easy to pour over our stuff in the crock pot then. Now over to our crock pot. Just going to give it a nice spray with some nonstick spray. This recipe called for about 1.5 pounds of chicken. I'm going to use 3 of these kind of big but kind of flat frozen chicken breast from Costco. On top of our chicken, we're going to put a 14.5 ounce can of petite diced tomatoes, and I did drain these very well. Then we're going to pour that little sauce we made up with the tomato paste and seasonings and Italian dressing right over the top. Pop that lid right on the top, and I think I'm going to cook mine on high for about 4 hours. It has been about 4.5 hours. The chicken is done perfectly, and I am just going to take my meat masher and shred it up right down inside of my crock pot. This has been smelling wonderful all day long. The original recipe calls for a 1/4 cup of fresh basil, but I only used 2 tablespoons of this chopped basil. If you buy these in the produce section, it lasts up to 4 weeks once you open it, but it's concentrated. They do some kind of voodoo magic on it. So you only want to use 1 tablespoon of this basil for every 2 tablespoons you would of fresh basil. Then we're just going to mix that right in. Gives it a beautiful, beautiful color, a little pop of green, and this dried basil has this wonderful flavor. I bought some fresh basil a week or so ago for a recipe, and it just tastes so good to me. When I saw this one called for basil, I just went ahead and got that little package. It was on sale, and I just enjoyed that flavor. I knew I would use that up in a month's time. Going to pop the lid on this and cut it over to keep warm, and we got one final step that makes this great. And look what we're going to do. We're going to cook up some garlic Texas toast. Going to cook it according to the package directions. After they've been in there about 4 minutes, I'm going to pull them out, and I'm going to top 2 of them with some provolone cheese. Put them back in the oven for their last minute of cooking. Just want to get them nice and gooey. This was absolutely amazing. There is no saving the best for last. This was delicious. One thing I will warn you, if you don't eat it on Texas toast, which we ended up finishing this off on regular bread, do make sure that you really squeeze a lot of the juice out. I did leave that juice in mine to keep my chicken nice and moist, but it is going to come on through that bread. So if you don't have a really thick bread, really squeeze that out when you heat your leftovers up. This would be wonderful in a wrap, over rice, or even just on top of a salad. The last few months of the year are the busiest for a lot of us. With school back in, fall sports and activities, and the holidays approaching, it's easy to fall back into our old habits of either hitting the drive-thru, making the same old boring meals, or just having sandwiches for supper. HelloFresh is America's #1 meal kit, and they always have something new to try with over 40 recipes to choose from each week. They make a home-cooked dinner actually doable with lots of quick and easy options, even 15-minute meals. Plus, HelloFresh does all the planning and shopping for you. Then ingredients arrive at your doorstep, pre-portioned and ready to cook. With step-by-step recipe cards, they're easy to follow, and save them to recreate your favorites anytime. HelloFresh has been a great way for me to try new types of food, things I wouldn't normally cook, and I don't have to spend a lot of money on full-size packages of ingredients that I might not use again. And speaking of ingredients, HelloFresh designs their recipes with in-season produce at peak ripeness, coming straight from the farm to your door. I would have never thought about using apples in my meatloaf on my own, but it was delicious, and it went so well with the brown sugar bourbon glaze. And that's another thing I love about HelloFresh recipes. A lot of them have you make a glaze, a sauce, or some kind of reduction, and it just gives your meal an extra pop of flavor. And I love recreating them for my own recipes too. I know I'm always in for a treat, and I always learn something new when I open my box from HelloFresh. And they have a great offer today. Go to HelloFresh.com and use code MOMMA16 for 16 free meals plus free shipping. Offers for new subscriptions only and varies by plan across 9 boxes. That's code MOMMA16 at HelloFresh.com for 16 free meals. And thank you so much, HelloFresh, for sponsoring today's video. Now I have a crock pot meal, and really it's just the sauce that you make in the crock pot. And you start out with some stewed tomatoes. I'm making half of this recipe, and I am chopping up those stewed tomatoes really little because my family is not big on like big pieces of stewed tomatoes. And then it calls for marinara sauce, some basil. It calls for oregano, which I did not have, so I just used a little bit more of the Italian seasoning that I put in. And some crushed red pepper flakes, just to your liking. And you know I don't like things very, very spicy. And then a nice big tablespoon of Worcestershire sauce. And what I think really makes this good is the beef bouillon. Then you're going to put also in a tablespoon of sugar to cut some of that acid, and some salt and pepper. And I have just sprayed my crock pot really well, and then I am mixing all this up in the crock pot. And like I said, this doesn't look like much, but I'm halving this recipe. And this is also a very beefy pasta dish. It doesn't have so much of like an Italian lasagna spaghetti flavor. It's very beefy. And here comes the beef part. It's just a pound of ground beef with some onions cooked up in it, and I did add some garlic. I'm going to drain all the grease off of that, and then I'm just going to put it into my crock pot with the tomato and all of the seasonings that I've got mixed up in there. I'm going to stir that up really good. Cut it on low and let it cook all day long. The longer the better. Mine cooked for about 6 or 7 hours, and since I had a skillet out, I had a bag of frozen spinach, and I'm just going to go ahead and get my spinach a little thawed out, stick it in the refrigerator, and you're going to put that in the very last thing. Now look at that meat sauce, how thick it gets. Like I said, it's not a soupy sauce, it's a very meaty sauce. So after it's cooked, you're going to go in with about 1/4 cup of Parmesan cheese, and then about a cup of mozzarella cheese. And I have been boiling some pasta over on the stove. I've drained the bow ties off, and I'm going to mix them and the cheese into this meat sauce. Look how yummy and melted that cheese is getting. And I'm just going to put the lid on it, and then I actually cut it up on high, and I let it sit for about 30 more minutes. Very last thing, after the 30 minutes is up, I'm going to bring that spinach that I have wilted, and I'm just going to mix that into this. Everyone at my house loved this dish. It's not overly tomatoey. It's not overly cheesy. It's just a very hearty pasta dish. I served it up with some garlic bread that I just toasted up in the oven, and a big old salad, of course. Tonight's dinner is inspired once again by Luke Brown, cooking in the Midwest. I can blame him for my addiction to this Buffalo Wild Wings Parm garlic sauce. We're doing a crock pot chicken meal tonight. First things first, spray that crock pot. Y'all saw that humongous 6.5 pound bag of frozen chicken from Costco, but I'm only going to use 2 of those chicken breasts. Go ahead and season this up with some salt and some pepper. I'm going to use a teaspoon of Italian seasoning, a teaspoon of onion powder, and a teaspoon of paprika. Also putting in a nice big spoonful of garlic. Now we're going to cover it with this Buffalo Wild Wings Parmesan garlic sauce, and I have 1 bottle here that's probably got about half left in it. I'm going to use it up first. I finished off that 1 bottle of sauce, and then I put a little milk in it because this stuff is thick. Shook it up real good and poured that in here. Then I probably used about half of another bottle that I just opened. Doesn't have to be swimming in it, but you do want it coated pretty good. And all these seasonings, they're fine just like they are. When this starts cooking down a little bit, I will come over here and stir it all around and make sure everything's coated and mixed up sufficiently. Pop that lid on, and I'm gonna cook mine on high. Probably be 3 or 4 hours. It's 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm just getting dinner started in the crock pot. We are definitely on summer hours around here. I don't know about y'all, but it just does not take long for us to get off schedule. With just me and Patrick here a lot of the time, it was like 9 o'clock last night. He was grilling us a steak for supper. That's just how it happens. I told him it made me think back to, do y'all remember back when everything was on lockdown, back in the awful times? And we got so messed up on our eating schedule. My kids thought it was so funny. They're like, we don't even know what we're eating and what meal it is, if it's breakfast or dinner or what time it's going to be. Things went crazy. And I kind of feel like he's been home a lot more, and we've just been doing other things, and we have gotten all out of kilter here. But anyway, 4 o'clock, supper's going in. We might eat it at midnight. We might eat it at 8 or 9 o'clock. But I do think all the kids will be here tonight helping with something, so it'll be ready for them. This chicken has been cooking 4 hours, and you can see it is perfectly done. And instead of shredding it tonight, I think I am going to chunk it up a little bit. That is a nice change from just shredding it all the time. We're just going to take every bit of that chicken and put it right back in all that yummy sauce. Going to take 1 jar of your favorite Alfredo and put this in. This recipe doesn't have any cream of soups or any cream cheese, but I think this creamy Alfredo just takes the place of it. I'm also going to put in about a 1/4 cup of Parmesan cheese, a nice large cup of mozzarella cheese. Then we're just going to stir all that together and get all those wonderful seasonings incorporated all throughout here. Pop this lid back on and let it sit on low. While all my cheese and Alfredo is getting mixed into that sauce, I'm going to boil a 16-ounce box of pasta about 10 or 12 minutes till it's nice and done. Here comes this pound of pasta. I'm in my little crock pot tonight. It might take me just a minute to get all this stirred together, but I'll get there, and I'm just going to leave it right in this crock pot. I went ahead and turned it off, or you could just flip it over to keep warm. Friends, you know I love these flavors. This was absolutely delicious. And don't sleep on your crock pots in the summertime. They're a wonderful way to cook a home-cooked meal without heating up your oven. And you can use them outside when you're camping. And if you're at the park and you have a pavilion where you have electricity, bring those crock pots. We do this all the time. Just put wieners right in a crock pot or line them up all around the sides and standing up, and they cook up perfectly and keep warm the whole time. And do a crock pot of chili and nacho cheese. You are set with no trouble and easy cleanup if you use a crock pot liner. This is another new to me dump and go crock pot meal. It is a taco hash brown casserole. And I am starting by browning up 1 pound of ground beef. And this is totally optional, but I had half an onion in the refrigerator, so I went ahead and diced that up and threw a little garlic into my meat when it was cooking because I had it. That's totally optional. You don't have to do that, but waste not, want not. It just added a little bit to it. And I'm just taking a paper towel and blotting up any of the extra grease in there. You don't want a whole lot of grease in this. I am spraying my crock pot like I always do. I'm going to start dumping everything in. We're starting with a 30-ounce bag of shredded hash browns. You want to make sure these are frozen. Do not let them be thawed out. Into that, we're going to add in 1 can of cheddar cheese soup and a package of your favorite taco seasoning. Then we're going to take 1 cup of a Mexican blend cheese, cheddar cheese, whatever you have on hand that you want to use. At this point, I just thought it would be a good idea to give it a little stir just to get it going. Then I'm adding in my ground beef. Now that that's warm on the top, I just give it another big mix, and it does seem to mix a whole lot easier then. And then we're going to take that 2nd cup of cheese and go right over the top of this casserole. This is one of those crock pot meals that just does not take long. I cooked mine on high for about an hour and a half, and then I cut it down on low. You could cook it on low for 4 to 5 hours. And I want you to look how beautiful that melted cheese is. If that makes you happy, go ahead and give this video a big thumbs up for me. This was absolutely delicious. I love a Tex-Mex dish anyway. And as soon as I started scooping it out, I was already thinking black beans and corn and rotel. All the things would even just make this even better. I served mine up with a little taco sauce, sour cream, and green onions, just like I would a taco or a burrito. I just can't tell you how good this dish was. 3 of us ate it this night. Then I took it into my in-laws and shared with them, and we ate a little bit more that night too. This is so good. If you like Tex-Mex flavors, you are going to love this one. I'm going to show you how I just make a classic chuck roast. Everybody has their own way of doing this. They're all good, but just like most people say, the slow cooker is your best friend with a chuck roast. Makes it so tender. This roast is about 2.5 pounds, but I like to start out with 1 can of cream and mushroom soup, and I just dump it on the top. Then I take one of these little packets, which is like instant beef broth. That actually makes 2 cups, but I'm just doing about a can full of water with it in here because this roast will make some juice of its own. Then I'm going to sprinkle right over the top a packet of Lipton onion soup mix. And I'm also going to put an envelope of brown gravy mix. You'll notice I did not put any salt. These little mixes are salty enough. I'm not even putting any pepper in here. I'm going to wait until we get ready to serve this, and we'll see what it takes then. You can always add more, but you can't take out. And these little things are full of flavor. I didn't even brown my roast. I didn't chop any onions. I'm busy today. Some mornings, we just need to dump and go. You just need to throw something in here and let this crock pot do its work. I've got it on high. It's 9:30. I'm going to let it cook all day long while I'm here at home on high. It will make it so tender. You can see this is just fork tender. It is shredding with just one hand. And the gravy is perfectly thick since I didn't add too much liquid. It just goes over mashed potatoes perfectly. Nothing says comfort like a good old-fashioned pot roast and gravy. I love it with mashed potatoes and a big salad. This meal is a perfect break from all of the appetizers and the rich cream cheese dips we've been eating this season. And my favorite part of a pot roast is the leftovers. I love to put it on just plain old light bread with some mayonnaise, salt, and pepper. This is my favorite. Today we're going to make a garlic parm chicken and potato crock pot meal. And I'm using about a pound of boneless, skinless chicken breasts that I have cubed into pieces. It's almost thawed out. I'm also tossing in about a pound of some baby red potatoes, not even chopping them because they are tiny. Using a 1/4 cup of grated Parmesan cheese right out of the green can. A nice little spoonful of garlic. I'm putting in a generous 1/2 teaspoon of Italian seasoning and a 1/2 teaspoon of garlic powder. I'm going to throw in a little pepper and salt to taste. And we're going to do about a 1/2 tablespoon of some olive oil. I'm just going to mix this up just a little bit. And this looks like a small amount, and it is a small amount. I'm actually halving the recipe that I'll have linked for you here below. I think I'm going to put a little bit more oil. I'm ready for a good meal tonight. I don't want fast food, and I don't have time to cook. It's just going to be me and Patrick here. So I'm going to use a crock pot. Never think that you can't use a crock pot just because you have 2 people. I can never emphasize this enough. Customize recipes to what you need for your size family. I'm not worried about there not being any liquid in here because, like I said, my chicken, it's still just a tiny bit frozen, so we'll have a little liquid cooking out. You can see I'm getting a little bit of a late start. It's 11:11, but I'm going to pop that lid on there. I'm going to crank this baby up to high, and I bet we'll have chicken by 3 or 4 o'clock this evening. It has been a little over an hour and my chicken is thawed out now. So I am going to kick this over to low just so nothing burns in here. It's been about 3 or 4 hours later and this is completely done. I'm just going to take a nice little handful of some shredded Parmesan cheese and put it over the top. I'm going to stick the lid back on there and let that get all melted down. While that is going on, I have taken a bag of steamable broccoli and I did go ahead and steam it in the microwave just so it could go ahead and be done because I like to roast it up and get it pretty good and crunchy in the oven. I just drizzle a little bit of olive oil on it and get it all coated. Then I'll hit it with a little of my Auntie Nono's, which is salt, onion powder, and garlic powder, and go about 20 minutes on 420 degrees. And it is perfect. And now the cheese has had time to melt on our dish in the crock pot. It is beautiful. I love my broccoli a little bit crispy like this. Super good. The color on this chicken is so good. It's come right out of the crock pot like that. But look at all the flavor. Delicious. And our little potatoes. Perfect. Soft and fluffy on the inside. So delicious. This is such an easy little impressive dinner. This makes a great date night supper. It's as good as anything that you would go out and get in a restaurant. And it was so quick and so easy. Even though it's a crock pot meal, it really just doesn't take long at all if you cook it in high and you cut your pieces up small. I couldn't wait to share this creamy ranch pork chop recipe with you. It's been a long time since I made it. And I have my crock pot sprayed and I'm putting in 4 kind of thin sliced pork loin chops. And I'm just putting 1 can of creamy chicken soup right over the top of them. I do like to try to spread it out over them. Then I just sprinkle 1 envelope of ranch dressing seasoning mix. This was actually a ranch dip mix, but it's fine. I don't use any chicken broth in this normally because I don't want it to get real soupy and gravy-like, but if your chops are a little bit thicker, you may want to put just a little bit in there. But I cook it on low for about 4 to 6 hours. And it was so funny, the day that I made this meal, I watched a video from my friend Kat at Southern Farming Kitchen. She made this exact meal, these ranch pork chops, and she made this roasted skillet corn. When I saw that, I knew that I had to have it. So when I got home, I just heated about 1/3 stick of butter up in my cast iron skillet, and I put in 1 can of sweet whole kernel corn. I drained it off really good. The only thing I put in it was a little bit of salt and pepper, nothing else. You just kind of cook it down, and you can kind of see the progression of it here. It'll begin to pop around in your skillet when it starts roasting up, and it'll just get golden brown and just get this wonderful, just deep flavor. It is so good. Like I said, I knew when I saw her make this, I had to have it too. And I had already decided that I was having green beans and mashed potatoes. And that is so funny too, because that is exactly what Kat had with hers and this corn. I can't say enough good things about it. And I also sometimes will throw a little cream cheese in this and some honey. And it doesn't roast, but it comes like a honey cream style corn. But you just can't go wrong with corn in a skillet any way, shape, form, or fashion. And I love these chops. And like I said, I just make them where there's just a little bit of gravy because I really like the ranch seasoning on these. They stay super moist and delicious. I really like this. I've not made it in a while. I think I'm going to have this again real soon. I'm going to put 2 videos on the screen for you. They are my best of crockpot videos from the previous 2 years. So check them out. If you liked this video, you won't be disappointed. And give this one a big thumbs up before you go tonight. Thanks so much for watching. And until next time, I send you love from my kitchen.